Welcome to the virtual Sekite Tenpachido Hall, home to kodan storyteller Kyokudo Nanshun. Tonight we are continuing the kodan series on the history of Japan's relationship with the rest of the world.
Thank you to Paul Elphinstone for keeping the lights on at Tenpachido Hall and Shundi for buying coffee to go at the Tenpachido Hall Basement Cafe. Tonight's kodan takes place around 200 years after the last story. In the 18th century, a new country gains their independence. They believe that they have the divine right to expand democracy, and this belief takes this new country all the way to the closed border gates of Japan. Who is this new country, and is this country the one to open Japan to the world again? Please enjoy Why Commodore Perry and His Black Ships. In our last story, Tokugawa Iemitsu bam! The gates to the border of Japan. From now on, no natives can leave this land, but more importantly, the Christians cannot get in, except for the Dutch. But we're going to shut them up on a man-made island in the middle of Nagasaki. Trade can continue, and nothing else. This was the start of Japan's Sakoku, their closed-door policy. This sparked a time of peace in Japan, but for the rest of the world, it was war, war, war. Speed up time. 1783 and the American War of Independence is won. This is the start of our story. Now a full-fledged country, the United States has some growing to do. Their top priorities: commerce and expansion. Expansion was so much a priority, in fact, that Thomas Jefferson, the man who penned the American Constitution, wrote a book. It is our divine right as Americans to spread democracy and prosperity, our manifest destiny, from sea to shining sea. Is that cringe? It just might be, but it's important to note for this story. By the early 19th century, the whaling industry was proving to be a challenge for the young US of A. Out in the Atlantic Ocean, American whalers. Look, over there, a coaling station. Nope, that one's British. What about over there? That's British too. British, British, British. How are we ever going to get coal? But getting coal was the least of their problems, as the whale population also started to decrease. There's no whale in our territories anymore. What are we going to do? Well, we can't go over there because it's British. Ah, I've got it. Kodan storyteller Kyokudo Nanshun is going to tell us we're going to the Pacific Ocean thanks to manifest destiny. Yes, that's right. With competition so fierce in the Atlantic Ocean, the American whalers turned their attention to the Pacific Ocean, where whale and coal was abundant. American whalers sailed out as if at a Cracker Barrel country buffet. Ding ding, nice to meet you. We're America. We're Hawaii? Hey, we need coal for our whaling ships. Would that be okay? As long as you do nothing else. But as the whalers moved out further, they needed more coaling and supply stations. Guam is a good place, we'll take this, and Samoa. Half your base will belong to us. And for a time, the whalers were satisfied until... Problem, Captain. What problem? The whales. They've migrated to the coast of Japan. We can't go there. What if we get into trouble? America was well aware of the unfriendly waters around Japan, namely because Japan made attacking any foreign ship not Dutch into law in 1842. For the U.S., though, something needed to be done, but who was going to do it? Meanwhile, in Japan, the Dutch sense a change. Concerned for the safety of their trading partner, King William of the Netherlands wrote to the emperor. You should really consider changing your closed-door policy before some military power comes around and forces you to change your policy. However, when the letter was presented to head council elder Abe Masahiro, what's this? A letter from the King of the Netherlands. Ah, in the bin that goes. But sir, aren't you going to at least read it? No, it goes against our agreement with the Dutch. Which is? Trade and trade only. We have no protocol for correspondence, so in the bin it goes. Not that King William's warning would have ever been heeded by the shogunate anyways, but that military force was soon to come. In a session of Congress on February 15th, 1845, Congressman Representative Zadok Pratt, a tall, lanky man with a beardy chin, submitted a resolution. It is in the general interest of the United States that there be efforts in the extension of American commerce. It is immediately recommended that measures be taken to make commercial arrangements with the Empire of Japan. The resolution was given, and who was the captain to go out to make first contact but Captain James Biddle? On July 20th, 1846, with instructions to not do anything that would cause Japan to distrust the U.S., Captain Biddle arrives at the figurative gates of Japan's border, which we're going to say is Edo Bay. Knock, knock, hello. What is it? We're the United States, and we want to be friends. We would like to meet with you to discuss trade arrangements. No. No. We have orders to shoot you should you stay any longer. Understood. And so, following his instructions, Captain Biddle sails off, and any relations with Japan were forgotten. For a time. On July 10th, 1850, Millard Fillmore becomes the 13th President of the United States. Whatever happened to going to Japan for commerce? We should get on that. And so, Secretary of the State Daniel Webster met with Secretary of the Navy William Graham. So, whatever did happen to going to Japan? Well, Captain John Aulick of the East India Squadron just mentioned that he would like to go. And we have 17 Japanese castaways in San Francisco who need to go home. How about we take them there? Our good deed will get our foot in the door for negotiations. Very good idea. I'll draft a letter. A letter was written and signed by President Fillmore. To the Emperor of Japan. The United States of America would like to be friends with the Empire of Japan and wish to trade with you. P.S. Give us coal. And Captain Aulick was off. But then he wasn't. It seems Captain Aulick was a hothead, and a diplomat on the ship got on his nerves. That's it. I'm turning the ship around and nobody's going anywhere. It's actually never reported what the issue was or the words exchanged, but sadly, it ended the U.S.'s second attempt at an expedition to Japan. However, the Dutch noticed Captain Aulick's failed expedition. They attempt another letter. Just so you know, we have reason to believe that you are going to be visited by a military force very soon now. For some reason, Council Elder Abe Masahiro reads this. Maybe this is getting pretty serious. Inform the 7 clans in charge of patrolling Nagasaki and Edo Bay, the magistrates in Nagasaki and Edo, and the top 3 houses about this. Tell them to just be on the lookout. Should we involve the Emperor? Nah, no need to do that yet. Just warn the appropriate clans first. This should be a matter within the shogunate. On November 18th, 1851, Graham sends a letter to a Commodore Matthew C. Perry. I need you to come to Washington, D.C. ASAP, but we cannot meet until Congress has. Perry, reading between the lines, please, not Japan. I already have orders for the Mediterranean. I would prefer to go there. Despite how Perry felt, he met with Graham the following year, after Congress's session was over. Captain Perry, please do come in. Thank you, sir. You probably already know why I called you here and insisted that we meet after Congress closed its session. I will do what I can to serve this country. Then, I want you to take an expedition to Japan in order to open trade with them. Since the British have taken up a vast majority of ports and coaling stations from Europe to China, Our whalers are going to need support, and we will find it in Japan. What Perry wanted to say here, and said as much in a letter to his family: I feel that me relieving a competent young officer such as Captain Aulick is not only counterproductive to the advancement of his service, sending a senior officer on a mission with no objective is a waste of resources. Any one of the junior officers would be more than up for this task and would allow them the gain in experience. But instead, Perry bit his tongue in front of his superiors. Very good, sir. How long do I have to prepare? Take as much time as you need. We will also be preparing a letter from the President for you to deliver to the Emperor of Japan. May I make one suggestion, sir? I will head this expedition to Japan on the condition that I receive full and discretionary powers over the fleet. I want to be able to defend the fleet if Japan decides to fire on us. Yes, I heard from Captain Glenn after he negotiated with Nagasaki a few years back that a show of force was necessary. I will get the paperwork on that going as soon as possible. We skipped over that in the timeline, but 3 years before, in 1849, Captain James Glenn successfully negotiated with the authorities in Nagasaki for aid, and it was thanks to him for how Perry navigated Edo Bay. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And so, opposed to the instructions given to Captain Biddle 10 years before, Perry receives full and discretionary powers to do whatever he deemed necessary on his expedition to Japan. Perry starts preparations. He receives the USS Mississippi. His first in command is Captain Henry A. Adams. They begin to gather recruits. Adams: what is the most important thing we're going to need? We're definitely going to need artists and photographers. This is going to be important documentation. Who do you have in mind? Let's invite painter William Hine and photographer Elliott Brown. And the State Department insisted we take agriculturalist Dr. James Morrow. How about interpreters? No need. We have those Japanese castaways. Some of them should be able to interpret for us. No interpreters. Translators. We'll worry about translators when we get to China. And diplomats? Why? There's no sense in bringing diplomacy into this just yet. Let's get the treaty signed before we have diplomats. No diplomats. What are we going to take to give to the Emperor? Make an inventory of rifles, pistols, swords, muskets, light cavalry sabers, and Colt revolvers. Hopefully they'll find use in that. Now, about the fleet. When we get to China, we are going to rendezvous with the Plymouth and Saratoga in Hong Kong and the Susquehanna in Shanghai. Ah, Captains Kelly, Walker, and Buchanan. That should be everything. Oh, Major Jacob Zellin will be in command of the Marines. Excellent. Good work. Prepare the ship to depart. And so the USS Mississippi casts off from Norfolk, Virginia on November 24th, 1852, into a 7-month journey to Japan. The Mississippi bounded over the majestic waves of the Atlantic Ocean to Madeira, then St. Helena, off to Cape Town towards Mauritius, and then to Ceylon, the perfect place for tea. They continue on to Singapore, Macau, and finally Hong Kong on April 7th, 1853. There in Hong Kong, Perry meets with Samuel Wells Williams, an expert on China. I need this letter from the President translated for the Emperor of Japan. You do know that China and Japan are two different cultures with two different languages. I can try to translate the president's letter into Chinese, but I know nothing on the customs of Japan. Good, because I was going to ask you to be our translator. I don't know how helpful I'll be, but I'd be honored to at least tag along. You will probably need to get this letter translated into Dutch as well. I know of a diplomat in Shanghai who can do that. And so the Mississippi, with the Plymouth and Saratoga, head to Shanghai to pick up Dutch translator Anton L.C. Portman and the Susquehanna. At the side of the Susquehanna, Perry. I will switch my pennant. The Susquehanna will be the flagship of the fleet. And off they sailed, the Susquehanna, Plymouth, Saratoga, and Mississippi, on their way to Japan's closed border gates in Edo Bay outside Uraga. When they arrived, it was July 8th, 1853. Perry up on deck. Helmsman, just steam past her line. Take us to Edo. But as the Susquehanna entered the bay, she was greeted by several small ships singling, "Go back! Go back!" But Perry continued his orders. Gunners, aim your cannons towards Uraga. Be ready to fire. Quite scary. Is Perry going to fire on Uraga? What is Japan going to do? You're probably wondering what comes next, even though this is history and we all know what comes next. But what comes next in this kodan? Well, you can listen to the rest of this story by becoming a YouTube member or at the now mobile Tenpachido Hall Basement Cafe. With the world being the way it is, you are more than welcome to support this channel by watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. It will really help us make a comeback. We'll see you again once Tenpachido Hall has been rebuilt. Until then, to Paul Elphinstone, Shundi, and to all you wonderful kodan fans, I thank you so very much.